All right, guys, welcome. So, what I'm doing here, I'm trying something new. I'm going to be creating a private video that I can post in YouTube and have you guys send you the link so you can watch it, but nobody else can see it, so we can talk privately. But I think this is easier for me than trying to type everything out and talk about everything. So, I think if this works out well, hopefully I'll continue to doing it for you guys and talk about it. So, when we talk about stuff during this episode, I first want everyone to know I appreciate all the effort and time you guys have put into this so far, and how you've listened, you responded. A lot of players have sent me private messages talking about things, asking questions, and you guys showing a lot of interest and a lot of ability to learn and a lot of ability to soak in and make yourselves better. And I do appreciate all that. So big thumbs up. Thanks for doing that. Um, if I talk about something specific that happens in the campaign, I don't want you guys to think I'm calling you out or your character out or you did this badly or you didn't do this. I'm just using you as an example to show people, what could have happened, what could have happened. Of course, it's easier now. We've had 2 or 3 days to think about what had happened. What could have happened during the session, how things could have turned out differently, blah blah blah. But it's easier hindsight to go back and say, oh well, I could have done this and I could have done that and everything. So I know when you're in the heat of the moment and you're playing, you don't, there's a lot to comprehend. There's a lot to think about. A lot of exterior things, phone calls coming in, people walking in the room or whatever that distract you. I mean, there's lots of things. Okay, so being there and uh, uh, doing it in the heat of the moment is different than looking back and going, "Oh, I could have done this better. I could have done that better." It's always that way. I mean, if you look at World War II, oh, Hitler did this wrong. If he would have done this instead, then Germany would have won, and blah blah blah. Well, yeah, we could sit here and say that, but at the time when Hitler or whoever was making the decision, it was like, well, this is the best thing I can do, or this is what I want to do, and we'll see how it works out. And so, again, I don't want to call anybody out. I'm not specifically trying to target anyone or talk about anyone. The only person I'm calling out today is me because after retrospectively looking again back at what had happened and everything, I think uh, I've made things more complicated than it really should be. All right. And I think you guys are kind of overwhelmed with everything at this point, and you're trying to think about, well, this aspect and this aspect and this aspect of role playing game, and instead of just focusing in on the most important thing. So there's the role playing aspect and there's the story aspect, and they work together. And while we were focusing in on the role playing aspect of things and trying to talk in character and think about what your character would do and everything, and I've seen great strides in that from everyone, I think I overcomplicated everything because I didn't. It's role playing games are simplistic in that the DM gives you information and then you reply back to that information, hopefully in character. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to reply with an accent and create this deep character now that has a backstory and likes and dislikes and history and everything. And if you want to, that's great, but you don't have to do that. Role playing is simply telling a story. Okay. When I originally posted who wants to be a player in a Dungeons and Dragons game, I posted that video looking for players. And I was hoping to get all of our YouTuber friends out there to get together and join us and get to play with one another. And the reason I did that is because I watched Dog Sidious, I watched Stratomatic, I watched Retro Sports Gaming, I watch the OG, I watch all you guys. And what happens during your live stream? I kind of talked with this about Ron in a private email that we had sent back and forth, and even mentioned it before I did, that what you guys do during your live stream is tell a story. Okay, that's what you're doing during your live stream. If you look at, and again, I'm not trying to call out anybody, and I'm not trying to put anybody in the spot. I'm just showing examples here. If you look at what role playing is, role playing is nothing more than telling the DM or telling whoever's in charge of the game what your character's doing. It's as simple as that. And I think we've overcomplicated. I think I've done a bad job of just explaining just the basics. Role playing is nothing more than just telling the DM what you're doing. When we look at Dog Sidious and he plays his Final Fantasy 14, okay, great. I don't know anything about Final Fantasy 14, and I don't really care about Final Fantasy 14, but I love watching Dog play it. What does Dog Sidious do during his live streams of Final Fantasy 14? He basically spends 2.5 hours telling everyone that's on the live stream what his character is doing. It's the exact same thing as what we do in a role-playing game. It's the exact same thing. My character's doing this, and I'm gonna cast this spell and watch how this one works, and I'm gonna go over here and do this, and he does a great job of explaining everything that he does with his character. I'm combining this element and this element, and it's going to create this other element, so then I can get a better cloak, and I'm going out. I'm going to join this other group of adventurers, and we're going to go out. All right, well, this first encounter here, oh, this is a bushwhacker. I don't even know the monsters terms, and this guy's kind of easy because I can get around behind this guy. He's not very quick, and blah blah. It's the same thing as we're doing in a role-playing game. Look at Stratomatic Delaware. Okay, when he's doing his card and dice Stratomatic baseball game. All right, when I watch him do it, it's the same thing. He's rolling the dice, and he's like, "Oh, okay, well that was ground ball to first base and over to whoever was playing first base." Or he rolls the dice, and oh, that one's going, it's going deep, it's gone up in the upper deck in the right field. The thing is, it doesn't say that on the card. All the card says is, ground ball out, home run, single, whatever it is. But Stratomatic Delaware takes that and makes it interesting by adding flavor, adding fluff, and adding his own unique taste to what's happening to make things interesting for people that are watching or people that are interested in doing that. All it says on the card is ground ball out to second base or whatever. And you add in all that extra fluff and all that extra flavor. And the same thing with Ron Chuckett as well. Now, Herb and Dylan, since I don't know you guys as much, I can't use you as examples, but you can see what I'm talking about. Everyone, whether you know it or not, tells a story and role plays every single day of their life. When you get together with your buddies and you go out to the bar and you're hanging out and you're talking back and forth, you're telling them stories about what had happened, or your girl you met, or you're telling them stories about things. Role-playing game is the same thing. It's that simple. And I think I've done a bad job of explaining that, and I've done a bad job of overcomplicating things as the DM. You guys should be a natural, and especially I'm talking about my YouTubers out there, you guys should be a natural to carry this over from one aspect to the other, because you're already doing that stuff on your live streams or on your videos. You're already telling people what you're doing with the baseball batter. When you got the card up, you got the card in your hand, you're making up stories about this guy, you're talking about what he's doing and what's going on around your environment. You understand what's going on. And your comfort zone is, either a football game or a baseball game or whatever sports you're doing. And so that's your comfort zone. Now all of a sudden I've thrown you into Dungeons and Dragons environment, and all of a sudden it's like, what do I do? It's not that complicated. You do the same thing that you guys have been doing on your live streams. It's the same thing. Tell the DM, ask the DM questions. Uh, just let me know what you're thinking, what you're trying to do. Use some of that fluff and that flavor that you have. I know Stratomac Delaware has started to add these to his character. Like I know that when I watch his baseball games on his channel, one of his famous sayings was, strikeouts, swinging at the Nietzsche, right? And that's kind of his thing, right? That's what brings him. That's kind of what his persona is for his online stuff. And all you have to do is just carry that over into our role playing experience online. Come up with things that you would say and just use them for your character. Uh, you know, Again, role playing is nothing more than the DM saying, "Oh, you go into a room and you see up in front a statue. It's made of gold, and its eyes are gems, and on the far edge of the wall, you see some ancient symbols." You then simply just tell the DM what you're doing, whether you're role playing it and giving me an explanation with your character with an accent and you're invested into your personality, or just simply just tell the DM, I walk over to the statue and check it out. Can I pull out my dagger and see if I can pry these gems out of his eye sockets? Whatever. That's as simple as it is. The DM gives you some information. You give the DM information back. And in the process, we create this story. We meld your comments, the DM comments together, and we meld this story. It's as simple as that. And I think I've done a bad job of just explaining that, uh, you know, and kind of talking to you guys about uh, just the basics, just the simple little things. Again, I don't really care if you know Dungeons and Dragons rules, other than you understand the basics, what you can do during a turn and stuff. And actually, that can be good for the group if you don't know the rules for Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. Because if you know the rules for Dungeons and Dragons, you stop playing the game as a character and you start worrying about the numbers. You start worrying about, oh my gosh, what am I going to do here? I've got this goblin that's going to stab me in the back if I try to leave. Uh, and if you're not worried about the numbers because you guys don't know the rules, it's actually kind of a good thing, because that lets you focus in on understanding I'm just a person somewhere else, and I'm just simply telling the DM or whoever's in charge what that person is doing to reply to whatever the DM says. It's as simple as that. Um, there is also, when we talk about role playing elements, okay, there's understanding what's going on. It involves knowing your character, and knowing your fellow party members, understanding what's going on in the environment, and understand the situation and trying to involve the story. So, for example, uh, what can you do to make things better for the situation to add to the story? Again, I'm not calling anybody out, but I'm just saying. So we had this huge tidal wave come crashing down the hallway, and you were asked to make a dexterity save. Now, if you roll really low, you're going to fail the save, and if you roll really high, you're probably going to pass the save, right? So if you roll really high, you can just say, I grab on with all my strength and dig my hand into the wall, hold on for dear life, right? And that adds to the story, because now we have taken the dice roll, and the DM says, oh, you passed. The only one that failed was the halfling, right? All you have to do is then tell the DM how you were successful in your save. Whether it's I put my shield up and angle the water around me so it doesn't sweep me off or whatever. It's a simple, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about role playing. It's just taking the situation and being creative in how the dice affected you and your outcome of the story element. Every time we roll a dice is because we're not sure of the outcome. Is the outcome going to be successful or is it not going to be successful? We will roll a dice to find out. Because if we had no dice and the DM says, okay, what do? I swing my axe and I hit the goblin and he's dead. Every time the players would hit the goblin and they would be dead. So we roll the dice to find out, yes, you've hit the goblin and he's dead, or no, you missed the goblin and he's still alive. So that's all the dice do, is determine whether we have success or we have failure. Based upon your dice rolls, you can then determine how they affected you and your character during that certain moment. When the halfling is swept away down the water, that can be just, and it turned into, okay, I just get swept down the passageway and out the cave, and I take 1 point of damage, and oh crap, okay, I guess I'm going to have to slug myself back in there. That doesn't really, that's what happened, right? We all know that. You, me, and all the other players know that. But that doesn't necessarily have to be how the story plays out, right? That doesn't necessarily have to be how it happened in the game. When the water comes, the halfling realizes that his puny 30 pounds are not going to stand up against this massive water wave that's coming crashing down the hallway. So instead of fighting it, he decides to body surf down the passageway with the water. At that point, what happens is all the players are laughing, they're having a good time because the character has now brought some super cool element into the game. They've taken a failure, something bad that was supposed to happen, and they've turned it into something interesting. If I'm reading a book and I'm involved in the characters, and the halfling decides that there's no way he's going to be able to resist this water because he weighs a whole 30 pounds, so he decides to body surf with the wave down the passageway. That is as simple as role playing is. That's as simple as it is. It's taking and explaining how the dice have affected your character in that story moment. Some people are better at creating these things on the fly. They have a more vivid imagination. They have, they have experience, okay, that they can fall back on. There's all kinds of different levels of players that can do this instantaneously and fast. But that's as simple as role playing is to look back, roll the dice, and if you get a failure, explain why you got a failure. If you can't think of something at the moment, go with it. That's fine. There's nothing bad about a failure. Failures can, as I mentioned in my email to you guys, failures can be one of the most dramatic and most interesting things because it builds tension. It can put characters in life and death situations. It builds relationships within the party. There's all kinds of advantages to it. If you just start mowing through everything you've done very easily and quickly, it can be tedious and boring because, well, another group of goblins, we must go slaughter them and get rid of them now. Okay, 5 minutes later, they're all dead. Now let's go into the next room and do the same thing over and over and over again. That kind of story is not really that interesting, right? If you have some conflict, if you have some... I'll be in a minute. Thank you. If you have some conflict and you have some failure along the way, you have that Um, you have that fluctuation between good and bad. It's not just a steady line of, okay, we're just mowing through everything. You have ups and you have downs. And that gives you opportunities to talk about things and how your character's reacting to the situation. Characters might even die. Okay? If you're building this character to be like the ultimate god, and he's perfect and he's nothing wrong with him and he will last forever and ever, um, you're setting yourself you're setting you up for failure because the story might not go there. It might take you to a place where your character dies. Okay? That doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. If we look at any single solitary good fantasy, sci-fi, mystery, whatever, players, characters die. If we take Star Wars, for example, Darth Vader dies in the story. When you watched episode 4, the first movie, when you watched what happened, you knew he was such an important part to this story. Nothing is ever going to happen to him. Well, 3 movies later, Darth Vader dies. Uh, the most iconic person in Star Wars, Han Solo, what happens to him? He dies. His character is dead. It's a dramatic moment. There's tension and there's intrigue, and it is part of the story. It furthers the story along. It's not something to look at as, oh my God, my character's dead. It furthers the story along because it inspires the other characters to seek revenge, to find out what evil lurks out there, and I haven't seen the last movie, and I know Dog Cities is probably saying, good, you probably don't need to go see the last movie, but so I don't understand how everything flows together. But I know that Han Solo is dead. His iconic character, the character that has now gone from level 1 all the way up to level 18, has died. Should it be a thing where you pissed off, you're upset, you hate the DM, you hate the story, you hate everything about it, or do you embrace it? And that's everything that we go about with role-playing games, is whether you embrace what's going on, whether it's good or bad for your characters, you embrace it and further things along. If you know that the bard is extremely hurt, wounded, you're all at 1 hit point, then it doesn't make sense for you guys to continue going room to room and fighting goblins or encountering traps or whatever happens, because every time you do, your characters are going to get knocked down. Your characters know this. They're not stupid, right? They know that shit. We just had a huge pillar come crashing down, knocking 2 of our toughest players almost unconscious. The sound is going to echo out the hallway, and everyone within 150 feet is going to hear this, and they're going to know someone's coming. We can't surprise the enemy because they know we're coming. They're going to be prepared for us, and they're going to be ready. Let's see, what are we going to do? We're going to charge forward because that's what we want to do in this story. That's fine. If that's what you guys feel the story, how the story should unfold, that's fine. I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. That is up to the players to decide what to continue doing. But then when you go in the next room and you walk in and the goblin hits you and you go down and you're unconscious and you don't have any healing, it's not time to get all pissed off at the game. It's not time to get mad at the DM. It's time to embrace the story and find out how the heroes are going to rescue the party. How are they going to deal with this situation to further the story along? That is what the essence of role-playing is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post this video as a private video. I'm going to send you a link to it, and hopefully you guys will have a chance to watch it. Again, I'm not trying to call anyone out. I'm just giving you situations. I think YouTubers, Chris and Dog and Ron, you guys do this stuff all the time. If you're like, oh, I've never played Dungeons and Dragons, I don't know what role playing is. It's basically, again, I've done a bad job. I'm calling myself out on this one, and you guys can call me out on anything you want. Okay, if you don't think you disagree with me, I'm not saying you guys have to agree with everything I say. That's fine. We can have a healthy discussion, just like you guys had after the last episode, where one of the players is upset and he voiced his opinion. We talked about things, and I didn't take it personal. Hopefully, none of the other players took it personal. I don't think he meant it as personal, right? He's just voicing his frustration. And I can see his frustration, but I also see that it's it's also, as I mentioned during the conversation, I understand his frustration, but if you, the one thing that's different about role playing games than any other game out there is you're writing the story. You are creating the events. If you know the party is wounded, they have they don't have any healings, they're spell users that don't have any power left, and you're continuing on because that's what you think you should do, then you can expect bad things to happen. The party gets knocked down, the goblins are going to capture you. You are now captured by the goblins. And now we have another story arc to go on. You can either embrace that or you can be mad. Why are we doing this? Why didn't someone not come heal me? No one had healing to heal you. You should know this. If you don't know this, then you're not following along in the story. You don't know what the other players are doing. You don't know their capabilities. Then ask them. Conversations between the players are never a bad thing. You can either do it in character, or you can do it just say, my character walks up to you and says, I noticed you've been limping around quite a bit, so you don't look healthy at all. Should we continue or not? I don't think we should continue. I don't have any more healing. Maybe a potion. Do you have a potion of healing that you could use? If you choose not to use the healing potion, then that's your choice as the player. You can either embrace the story, or you can fight against it and think of all the bad things that happened, instead of adding to the story and bringing out those elements that are going to make things that people will want to continue watching and reading the story. Right? I'm going to post this video. I'll send you guys the link. And if everything works well, again, this will be private, so no one else can see it except for the people I send the link to. So if you want someone else to watch this, you can send them a link. They should be able to see it. I think that's how it works. And if it does work this way, I'll probably continue talking to you guys, giving you my thoughts and opinions, and let you know. And you YouTubers out there, you can do the same thing. If you record a video, when you upload it, there is the option to make it public or private. You can choose to make it private. You can send me a link if you don't want to type back. I thought this is easier than typing. It took me like 3 hours to type that mess yesterday. And I'm like, good Lord, there's got to be a better way than me spending all that time typing. I can do much better job of just talking to you guys. Like we're sitting here at a kitchen table. You've all come to my house. We are now playing Dungeons and Dragons, a role-playing game, where you simply tell the DM what your character's doing to further the story along. Embrace the story, embrace the good, embrace the bad, embrace everything about it, and add your own specialness to the story. That's what role-playing is. It's as simple as it is. I've done a bad job, terrible job of just explaining that. We focused in on talking about character and thinking about what your character do. I think players are not just playing the game. And I'm going to actually be posting a video to everyone, not just you guys, but I'm going to be introducing role playing and my thoughts on role playing to everyone out there because we might be looking for some second game, or I've got another thing I'm thinking about doing down the line. And a lot of people are probably thinking, I don't know if I don't know anything about role playing game. I don't want to join a role playing game. So I'm going to be posting a video that might be helpful for you guys as well. But some of those things I want to talk about is things that we talked about in this episode. It's not hard. Every time you open your mouth and talk, you're either asking for information or you're giving information to someone else. That's it. Use your voice to communicate. If you're not talking, you're not asking, or you're not telling somebody something. There's no other way to communicate but other than your voice. And if you use your voice, if you think about any conversation you had, you're either asking people for information or you're giving them information, one or the other. It's burned into our subconscious every time we speak. We are either seeking knowledge or we're giving knowledge, one or the other. So role playing is just simply talking. You're either going to be asking a question to the DM or the DM, or you're going to be giving information to the DM. That's as simple as I can make it. We'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks for watching.